Only around 5,000 subscribers left till we tick over the 50,000 goal for the year, so be sure to hit that button, it would be appreciated. The aviation industry presents several curveballs, whether related to fleet, employees, airline operators, mergers, or something else in between. Explicitly focusing though on aircraft orders, there have actually been several occasions where an airline has ended up with an aircraft on its order books that it didn't necessarily envisage. In some cases, the respective airline that takes on this order will operate the plane, maybe unwillingly, or in other cases, the order will be terminated. However, looking back through the years, what we do see is several airlines and aircraft combinations that never eventuated, and may look a little bit funny if they had been proceeded with. Today, the focus is on Delta and the Boeing 787, specifically on this curious order that could have, yes, if proceeded with, seen the major US airline operate the popular wide-body series. But how did all of this come about? Did the aircraft ever really stand a chance at being delivered to Delta? And what happened to the order in the end? Let's begin with where it all began. While Delta had the 787 order on its books, it wouldn't actually be them that ordered the aircraft initially. It's odd to say aloud and could be perceived as confusing, but bear with me if you're new. The 787 order was placed by Northwest Airlines in 2005. This deal at the time consisted of 18 units from the Dreamliner family. And also at the time, Northwest was crucially still flying on a day-to-day route network that several analysts believed would benefit from the delivery of the 787 from Boeing. These opinions were also spoken on key aviation forums between enthusiasts. In the mid-2000s, the 787 was truly making its mark before being delivered to airlines, and additionally for Northwest, from a pure fleet standpoint, the Dreamliner was considered an ideal plane for replacement efforts of, at the time, some of its inefficient aircraft that were remaining. Aircraft orders such as these that end up at another airline are not uncommon, and will typically occur because of a merger, takeover, or acquisition, and so on. You do get the gist, at least, of where I'm headed with that. For Northwest, a mere half a decade after they purchased the 787, they were absorbed by Delta. And while their memory obviously still lives on to this day, their mere presence exists through Delta rather than their own defined brand. In some cases, the aircraft taken on by the airline as part of the purchase will be axed. Maybe some will be retained, or there will be other things to consider. However, the one underlying point will be that airlines will need to come together to review the fleets and determine just truly what is the best course of action. At the end of the day, the company getting the biggest say in that is Delta, as in this case, they're acquiring Northwest. This strategic decision-making process is also hardly an overnight one. While it didn't seem entirely likely that Delta was all that keen on flying the 787 Dreamliner, they didn't exactly outright say cancel the order, as you may recall. What they did do was delay it, or say defer deliveries for the aircraft. This is a very common practice with airlines around the world, and it can be for several reasons. Obviously, in the case of Delta, it allowed them more time to understand and also plot a course for their future that they were happy with. But for other airlines, it could be a means to, say, navigate turbulent financial times when they may not be in a position to take on new planes. Or in some cases, and this would definitely be on the absolute extreme, it can be a way for an airline to get out of having to take an aircraft that they no longer want. This careful consideration and planning is obviously a testament to Delta and their real focus on being strategic and adapting to the ongoing situations that they were finding themselves in. It is a skill that they needed to have, especially when taking on an airline. For Delta, their time of review regarding fleet saw quite a considerable shift. That is the shift to Airbus, which has been documented in videos here on the channel and is utterly fascinating. Delta's shift to Airbus, many would argue, truly began in the early to mid-2010s, with its first order in multiple decades. The commitment to the European plane maker was initially just for a mere narrow-body jet, but it would truly set the tone for the years to come, as they would go back and continue to order other aircraft types, and ones that were larger. The shift meant that Delta's priorities and also vision for the future had changed, and for them, what Airbus was offering was a fleet plan that was more optimal, bringing greater efficiency and, at least what Delta believed, greater customer satisfaction levels. The shift represented a positive step forward for Delta and its commitment to trying to put forward the best possible service. By 2016, Delta's order for the 787 it had taken on from Northwest would have received the final nail in the coffin, that being in the form of an order cancellation. The reasoning behind the cancellation didn't really need to be overly stated. It was pretty much wrapped up in several comments, that being that moving away from the Dreamliner just aligned with the fleet strategy that Delta had, and their continued goal to address wide-body needs. And no shock horror, but the 787 was not included in that view. It isn't necessarily a lie that while the 787 brings a fantastic level of comfort, efficiency, and so much more to any other prospective company, if an airline is moving in a different direction, say that is in this case of Airbus, adding another aircraft type, especially from another aircraft manufacturer, when you may already have that alternative in mind, would it just complicate matters? Take a look at Delta. They currently fly the Airbus A330neo. This is seen as the competitor to the 787. Therefore, introducing the Dreamliner, while again a fantastic aircraft, wouldn't really make sense. While Delta's fleet was hardly streamlined in the mid-2010s, even as the global pandemic arrived, they had a fleet that was all over the place. And while the groundings allowed them to refine their fleet for the first time in many decades, they still did know the obvious basics, otherwise they would have failed as an airline. The basics being more aircraft from different series would overcomplicate matters. This could be from crew to maintenance to expenses. It makes much more sense to pick an aircraft, see that it obviously works within your operations once flying, and then go back for seconds and thirds and fourths, and continue growing your commitment to an aircraft that is seen as ideal and perfect. Delta recently did that in the last 6 months with a top-up order of Airbus A350s. This time, they included the Dash 1000. Would the 787 have made a nice addition to the Delta business, in your opinion? Or do you think that an order termination makes much more sense than retaining it, all things considered? You can let me know down below in the comments. Thank you very much for your support here on the channel. It is certainly appreciated. Please do take care and do also be safe. I will indeed see you, same place, same time, and I'd say a couple of days for your latest aviation analysis. I almost said news, but no, we're on the second channel here. Thanks again, do truly appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel as we push for 50,000 subscribers. Take care, and I'll see you then. And we'll fly.